Well, there was a military commitment to Saudi Arabia from the time of FDR at the end of the 1940s, just before he died. And basically, the commitment was that the United States would help defend Saudi Arabia against its enemies. And during the Cold War, this was expanded in the Carter Doctrine to mean an invasion by an external power like the Soviet Union. I became ambassador to Saudi Arabia in 1989. The war began in 1990, August 2nd, when Saddam Hussein's forces invaded and occupied Kuwait. Up to that point, the United States had only a minimal military presence in the Persian Gulf, a few ships belonging to something called the Mid-East Force, which had been there since 1947. On August 6th, I returned from home leave in the United States to Jeddah to meet with King Fahad in the company of Dick Cheney, then the Defense Secretary, and others, including General Norman Schwarzkopf. King Fahad invited the United States to make good on its commitment to defend the kingdom, especially when he saw photographs of Iraqi Republican Guard troops, scouts, 25 kilometers inside Saudi territory, looking at the way forward to both the United Arab Emirates and to the capital city of Riyadh. General Schwarzkopf had a plan for the deployment of some 220,000 troops. We worked out terms for their stationing in Saudi Arabia by making them part of my embassy. In the end, my embassy consisted of 550,000 personnel, all with diplomatic status, to harmonize the many frictions that were inevitable between a very conservative, austere Muslim society and the much more varied and diverse United States. The military presence was essential. It took place in two waves. The first, to defend Saudi Arabia, but frankly, until about October, the 82nd Airborne and the other troops that were deployed were basically speed bumps if the Iraqis had moved forward from their perch on the border. We needed to have a second deployment, which occurred in late November through early February, to be able to go on the offensive. The war lasted 42 days of bombing and 100 hours of ground action. I was involved at every stage, sometimes unsuccessfully, urging Washington to devise a plan for terminating the war. One should never start a war without first deciding what one's objectives are, the war aims, with whom one will achieve agreement to those aims after victory, and we never did either. So the war ended indecisively with the Iraqi and American and Saudi coalition commanders meeting at Safra in southern Iraq to agree on purely technical matters like how to deal with prisoner of war and missing in action problems, where minefields were laid, where the actual line of control was when the truce was declared, and so forth. There was no political resolution of the issues underlying the war. Saddam Hussein never agreed that he had been defeated, and he was not humiliated, and therefore he was not overthrown. So the end of the war was that it didn't end. And some years later, in 2003, the son of George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, invaded Iraq all the way to Baghdad, overthrew the government in Baghdad, and thereby negated one of the main purposes of the war in 1990-91, which was to ensure that Iraq could balance Iran. In other words, Iraq would be defeated, its forces cut down to a level where Iran could balance it, and vice versa, thus obviating the need for an American presence of military force in the Gulf. The 2003 war, plus a decision made in the Clinton administration to try to balance both Iraq and Iran rather than to use them to balance each other, led to the United States essentially being stuck in the Gulf. We're unable to leave because to do so would risk instability at the very heart of the global energy economy.